Good evening and welcome to the last Facebook Live of 2025. Oh, your laptop's finally caught up. I've only been waiting 2 minutes for it to catch up. Notice Paul has done us a nice little Christmas Santa. He was going, oh, shall I make the snow animated? It's like, no, good effort. Although that camera is now on a bit of the wonk. But that could be the fact that Paul was trying to teach Marvin to climb up the little steps at the front for turning the overhead camera on so that he could feature. So maybe for 2026 there will be a Marvin cam added to the studio. Hope we are all okay. And so we have got Andrea, Diane, Carol. I saw another name a minute ago. Andrea, Diane, Carol. So nice for you to join us. Sarah, how is everybody? I hope everybody's on the mend, Sarah, and you can actually start to relax and start to enjoy the Christmas period. So I'm doing a double whammy tonight so that we are not going to have a live between Christmas and New Year, only because I've also got telly and it's just going to get all a bit muddled and a bit messy. So I thought I'd have a double whammy for this. Also means I can cover the last of the 2 stamp sets from last week, and then it means we can start afresh in January. Hi Jackie. So what we're going to do is we're going to play with the leftover things that we haven't yet covered from last week's TV show. So we are going to be, hang on, button pressing. Let me get these the right way around. There we go. Right. So we're going to be looking at the allotment stamp set and the Brighten My Day one, which do go hand in hand because you've got the lovely seed markers there, but you've also got some really nice sayings in there. I like these sort of mixed font ones and stuff. So we're going to be having a play with those. We are also going to cover... Hi Mara, how are you? We are also going to cover making one of these. I love that. So I will cover you on that. The stuff is not yet on the website, only because I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had a server issue yesterday. So the server was down all day. They didn't get it sorted until today, and I haven't dared touch it. But we will get these added on. But if anybody, obviously, we're also as soon as I finish here tonight, we're going home. And I'm not coming back in until the bit between Christmas and New Year. But if you are desperate to get... Sorry, I thought I'd lost my mic then. Desperate to get the Exploding Box kit, just drop me a message and we will sort it out in the Twixmas bit. But yes, it's a kit enough to make 6 of those, and I'll walk you through that later. Right, so one last... I knew it wouldn't that time. You've got to pull the lid off quite quickly, and this one, as you can see, is a little bit tatty because I keep winging it about. But it is a really fun one. So up and quick, and there you go, your little exploding box. Right, so we'll cover that in a bit, but let's just have a play with some stamps. So these are DL stamp sets. They again, obviously they are the hobby art ones. So we've got Allotment, which has got all manner of little bits and pieces in. We've got this beautiful sunflower here. You've got onions, a carrot. I just smile whenever I see a carrot. Bean pole, wellies, and everything is scaled so that you can work it all together. And then you've got the beautiful main shed here, which is what we're going to start with. We're going to start doing a little project with that one. And then you've also got these beautiful sayings. Right, so I'm going to... Did I bring my trimmer up? Yeah, I did. Wasn't really making Christmas cards downstairs. Good news is Yodel have collected most of the orders from Thursday. Was it Thursday? Thursday's TV show. Most of them have been picked up. So they are... I know they're not going to get to you before Christmas, but they are on their way. So, yeah, the decks are cleared. Does that fit on that? Bear with me one moment. Yes, it does perfectly. I'm just going to cut this up in. I just think this shed on the allotment one does look really nice on craft cards. I'm just cutting up a bit of craft card there to be a bit smaller. Right, let's get going. So I've already popped him on his acrylic block. This craft card has 2 tones to it, and I think I'm going to go with the darker one, but that's just, you know, just a bit of brown really is what you want. And I am going to go with the black VersaFine Clair. 2 reasons. 1, I want this to be really bold, and 2, I've packed a lot of the others to go back to the cabin because I've got crafting to do. So apart from prep for the New Year's Eve show on the telly, I've also got a couple of projects that I want to do, so I need to... You found us, well done. Yeah, it's a bit weird because obviously we normally do this on a Wednesday, and I went to put up, you know, have the little stills that flash up, these things. Well, obviously I put them up and then realised it said Wednesday, and I thought, no, it's the wrong time of year to be confusing people with days of the week. So I quickly had to use the one that Paul's done us for the end, which is the one you just saw. Right, knew that would happen because I wasn't concentrating. So I'm going to just stamp that again because I do want it to be absolutely perfect. So plenty of ink on it. Pressing it down firmly. I don't need to worry about that middle bit being perfect, but I do want the rest of it perfect. Okay. That's better. Okay. Won't disregard that yet because it's still good enough to use for something else, which we'll do in a minute. Right. I now want to stamp that again on something with a little bit of personality. That might do. Nothing too heavy. I'm going to go with just a little bit of colour. I could be colouring this in myself, but I haven't really got a huge amount of time. And this time when I'm inking it up, I am only concentrating on the bit behind the door, so that middle section. And I'm just going to stamp that onto the piece of patterned paper. And again with this, I could come in and really start colouring in. I could stamp the little stool. I could go to town on decoupaging this because there is so much detail in there. You know, adding a bit of colour to the floorboards, add colour, you know, you could sit and just colour in that section. But what I'm going to do, paper piecing for that one is, I'm kind of going to do a bit of paper piecing now. I mean, this you could get totally and utterly lost in. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut out the doorway. Okay. Carefully. And if you're not happy doing it with a knife, you can just bend it and stick your scissors through. But by doing it this way, I do save the that bit. So if I did want to start cutting little bits out. So what I've now got is a hole in my card. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that behind it, but we're going to raise it away so it's got a little bit of depth to it. So this I can cut out. Hello, Saul. So yes, this one I'm going to cut out just with my scissors, like so. And that, where did that? So I'm just making sure I'm cutting, making sure it fits back in. Yeah. So we need to step it away so that we've got a little bit of depth there. And I say, because when you look at it, you've got this little watering can hanging up here. You could really, really go to town with this, depending how good your eyesight is and how good you're cutting. And in which case you would do a squeeze accordion gusset, but we don't need to do that because we're only going to go to one layer. So what I do want is a strip of brown paper. Brown just so that if it is visible, it looks like the inside of the potting shed. So I'm going to glue that to a piece of paper. I'm just going to trim off the serrated edges of this. And I don't need quite as much of that. Okay, I am going to fold over and fold over. So now I've got like a U shape, okay? And then I'm going to fold back. And if you want to do measuring with this, you can do, but just by eye is good enough as well. Okay, so that they're roughly even. Okay, and then that was my glue stick. Oh, so smeary of the old glue stick. Okay, making sure you're the right way up, and then just position that over the hole, the aperture that you have created. Okay, and the nice thing with this is it will fold flat to get it in the post if you've made those. Okay, and then you've got your little potting shed with a little bit of dimension as you go in, and it's drawing the eye in. And you don't have to raise it away as much as I have. You could have it just a tiny bit away, but you see it just looks like you're really looking into it and adding a bit of depth to it. So that's a really nice way of using that one. Right, one. Now, we did have this where I'd messed up the stamping. So let's not waste it. Let's stamp it again. And I'm going to use the pattern paper that I've already got out. Okay. And we know where the problem lies. The problem is lying right in the middle there. So I'm not so worried about the top and the bottom. I'm just worried about the bit where it's missing. Okay. It's better, isn't it? So, coming from the under the roof and across, coming again, sort of aiming for across the stool. Yeah, that's going to work. So, bit of glue. Sorry, I've gone lazy tonight with glue stick, but as I volunteered to do a 2-hour live, I thought, you know what, I'm going to treat myself to a glue stick. Press that down, trim off that bit. Also going to trim that down very slightly so it's nice and flush, because that always looks more effective. Take that down there, bit off the top and bottom, and then I'm going to mat it onto a piece of black. Now, I don't normally do the matting and layering, but I just think that's going to really help it pop. So I'm going to use some of the black lined grey board. Bit more glue on there. See how adding that little frame of black really makes all the difference, because it's drawing the eye to the stamping lines. Okay, and across there, and then we're just going to glue that down, and there's a very simple recovery from one we'd messed up. When I say we, I mean me, because obviously there is no we here. But it just goes to show, don't, you know, nothing's lost. And that you've got a nice, two very different, I mean, the depth in that one is just, I just want to go rootling on the bottom shelf there. There's got to be something good at the bottom shelf there. You know, so you could, And this could all be coloured in. If you enjoy your colouring, you could really get lost in colouring this one in. But there you go, 2 simple ones there. Right, let's up it a little bit. Now, for this, I'm going to need a white image and a white piece of card. Right. I'm going to just... Do you know what? I'm going to save those. I don't think we'll have time to do a waste not, want not, but I will save them. Right. So from this one, I'm going to just grab Paul's bargain of the century, which he got me. I've even left the price on it. Can you see that? £4. It had no plates. I already had Big Shot plates because my Big Shot, unfortunately, went to the big die cutting place in the sky quite some time ago, actually. But I hung on to the plates because I have a lot of Big Shot dies. So yeah, so bargainlicious. We got a Big Shot. Oh, hello, Big Shot. So I haven't got the multi-purpose platform. I probably have got it somewhere. I just need to find it. But it means I can cut my Tim Holtz alteration dies without having to use my poor little Cuttlebug. So I want... don't know which leaf I want, actually. I haven't decided yet, but I'll do them all. Okay. And... so, staying with that big potting shed again. We are going to use some of the smaller stamps in a minute, but I just want to stay with this one for a minute. And I'm going to and I am keeping this just black and white. So down we go, pressing firmly. Again, this time if I mess up the middle, it's not the end of the world, but I don't want to. Okay. Now, I want to have this leaf over the top. Obviously, it's going to obliterate all the potting shed. So I need to stamp on it. So I need to get a rough idea of the sort of direction I want my leaf to be going. I'm just going to use a scrap of... can I even see that through? Oh, I can just about see that through the copier paper. So I'm going to position that where I want it, and then I'm going to ink up my stamp again. So I can see that if I aim roughly for where my previous stamp is, just roughly, doesn't have to be spot on accurate. If you've got a stamping platform, you could do it spot on accurate, but you don't have to for this technique. So just roughly over the top, and I'm going to press down. Now, I'm not worried about getting the perfect image this time because I'm only wanting that little bit on the leaf. Okay. And because the leaf is slightly raised, so that looks a bit weird, but you can see if I remove that, we've now got all that fabulous detail on the leaf. And then if I bring it back here, and you're thinking, why on earth have you done that? Because you can't really see. But what we're going to do is we're going to, I mean, look, you can see, well, you can't see. It's fitting over the top there perfectly. So we can't, what's the point in doing that leaf? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to raise the leaf up so that it's going to just hang away very slightly. So you're going to have this interesting illusion. You could do this full spotlight and do this in a colour this in and stuff, but I think this is going to look really stylish in black and white. But what I am going to do before I start putting that leaf on, I'm going to trim. Again, I want this to be matted just so you can see the full impact. So I am just going to trim this down and mat it before I stick the leaf on, because once the leaf is stuck on, I can't easily slide my card under my trimmer. Okay, so just going to, and I chose a leaf for this because obviously it's a garden thing, but you could do initials, you could do all sorts. So I just want to map that onto a bit of black because it will just make it pop even more. Do I want to leave that? I'm going to trim it right down. Okay, and get that stuck on. Bear with me. Snip. Please note how clean the trimmer still is. And it has been used, in case you think I'm... Yeah, this one is lovely for blokes cards. Because you've got that kind, you know, especially as it's not sport, it's just nice. Even if they're not necessarily a gardener or got an allotment, it's still got that nice feel. Okay, right, so we're now going to raise this up. So I haven't got any foam pads here, so we're going to have to fake some foam pads by using anything, all and sundry, that I can find lurking around. So simply, no, not those, I'm about to cut up something I need. So simply I'm going to use a bit of grey board. So this is 2mm, so that will raise it up enough. And I just want to cut some smallish bits just so that I can raise this up a little bit. I might stick 2 together. So, smidge and a smidge. And just put that on the back of the leaf, making sure that you can't see any of it from there. I mean, if you've got foam pads, even better. But I wouldn't worry, you can build it up with anything. Now, I've used the glue stick again because I now need to get this lined up. So I'm going to sort of have to peer over a bit. And then you've got that nice leaf effect. Can you see that? I'm just wondering, actually, it might be easier to go to that camera. That button. See how it's just given that real interest of the leaf shape. Such a clever way, but quite classy, but really different, and this, so you don't have to do a huge amount. I've chosen quite a complex leaf. You know, even if you did it with the simplest of leaves, it would look really effective. And again, you could do that all coloured in, but you would have to make sure that the colouring in of the leaf section is perfect to the background. But you could cut the leaf out and just raise it above the stamped image, so you're only stamping it once, but you might find if you just line it up, you would see the cutout and it would just spoil the illusion a little bit. Okay, what one am I on? That one, go back to that one. Right, so there we go. Now I've obviously got this piece of card here that I've cut out, so that's going to give me some leafy shapes, leafy stencils. I'm being a bit mean there with the piece of card. Let's have a bigger piece of card. Okay, so I'm going to pop the leaf down, and then I'm just going to grab a sponge and some colours. No idea what colours because I just grabbed a pile. Oh, line it back up. Add a bit of yellow. If you need to tape things down like this, tape them down. You're probably not going to be rushing like I am. Okay. And then I'm going to see, is that, no, it's dusty Concord. Must have a brushed corduroy in here somewhere. Oh, I haven't got a brushed corduroy. I never leave home without one. I've got a walnut stain. That'll do. But brushed corduroy. No, walnut stain as well. Yeah, brushed corduroy is my favourite brown. Because it's not too harsh. Actually, this is quite nice. Because I've put the ripe persimmon and mustard seed down first, the walnut stain's not too overpowering. So what we've got now is a beautiful leaf. And then we can take some of our stamps and overstamp that. Now we could go with a scene one. We could actually stamp the potting shed over the top of that. You know, that would look nice, that would work. Should we do that just because we can? And then I can do a different leaf and a different stamp just to show you the sort of things you can do with this. Because there is more than one stamp in this set. But I think this is going to look quite nice. And of course you can change the colours depending on the season. Give it a firm press. It's quite nice. But I think it's going to look better with, I've got a particular stamp that I think will look amazing with that. Again, mat and layer it, because it might look a little bit busy at the moment, but you see when you put the black around it, how the lines within the leaf jump forward more. So when you take the black away, the leaf becomes more dominant. When you put the black there, the black makes the lines jump forward and the design comes through more. But let's go with that leaf. Same colours, because I quite like those. But I'm going to start with mustard seed this time. Move the board from underneath so I don't get a line. Okay. Come in with the ripe persimmon again, just to add a bit of warmth. And then you can come in with the walnut stain. And in fact, I've got 3 leaves here, so we'll do 3 different ideas with this. So again, we've got our nice thing. And then in the allotment set, I'm going to want that stamp in a minute. There is this beautiful sunflower. The welly boots keep falling off. So I'm going to get that. And I'm just going to do 1, 2. I'm going to go with 3 because obviously 3 is aesthetically pleasing. 3. And then I'm also going to grab from the Brighten Your Day set. There are some smaller greetings. That's the one I want. And acrylic block. Just very simply at the bottom there, underneath the middle one, I pick you. So you've got a few different ideas on just using that leaf that we have got left over from doing our other card. Right, so one more idea like that. I'm only going to need a small piece for this because I'm going to use the little leaf, the more plain leaf. And I'm going to come in with a fresh sponge because I want to have, sorry, squeaky, blue there. I'm going to just Why, when you want it to tear wobbly, does it not tear wobbly? So add in a bit more ink up there. See how it's created a little bit of a gradient. And then just bring that down a tiny bit more. And then here I'm going to go and grab some green. So I'm going to go with Mown Lawn. Put the lid on that. Okay. So you see, we've created a very simple sort of landscape, I suppose. Okay, take the leaf away. And in the allotment set, there is a very nice little, I'm assuming, fruit tree. And I just think that stamped on that leaf like that. How sweet is that? So a nice way of creating a bit of, watch later, that's absolutely fine. I say it's a bit of an unusual time, but I didn't particularly want to be, I wanted to do 2 hours, but I didn't want to make the boys and Paul wait ridiculously long. So I thought if I just started an hour early. Right, so that's those. So I'm going to stick with my little sunflower from within that. And even those, you know, there's something you could, you know, you could use those. You could cut them out or save them and use them for something else. But, you know, they were, to all intents and purposes, waste because we'd got what we wanted. Right, but we're going to play with that little sunflower for a minute. So I'm just kind of trying to, because I know if I'm going for 2 hours, I know how quickly I can fill this space. So I'm just creating a little bit of space. Right. I've got 2 ink pads here, completely irrelevant what ink pads they are. It's just the shapes I'm after. So I am going to get a piece of card. I'm going to just quickly cut it in half. Not perfectly, because it's now just about doing lots of different techniques. Right. So, ink pad, smear it into another ink pad, distress ink this time. And we're going to spritz our card, and we're going to plop the ink pad down, the lid of it. Okay, gonna then grab a different colour and do the same thing. So I did wipe the top of my ink pad so that I'm not contaminating my distress inks, but you could get a second impression out of that if you wanted a different, you know, a different gradient. And then I'm going to do a bit of mustard seed, and then I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got these panels of colour. Then I'm going to take the lid off and basically do the same thing, but this time I'm going to get a frame. Okay, I'm not going to spray the card again because there is enough water there for that to bleed out. And then barn door. And it's just giving you like a colour blocked idea for your background. Then we're going to give that a little bit of a dry. It is nice if you can let it dry naturally, but I want this so I can overstamp quite quickly, because if you let it dry naturally, the colours would bleed out a little bit more. You can overlap your colours. You don't have your squares. You don't need to keep them all separate like I have. Just mess about with your design here. But it's now given you panels of colour to work to. So, do I want them? Oh, that might be quite nice. So I'm actually going to rotate it round so that I've got, because the 2 blocks are about, oh, do I want to go? Okay, changed my mind. Could do either. You could go that way and do 1, 2, 3, but I'm actually going to rotate it round that way. I'm only going to do a single flower across there, and then I'm going to find a saying to go in there, and I think let grown with love, that would work. So I'm going to do the grown with love, but before I commit to it, I just want to try something. So there's grown with love. Let's just take my sunflower off a minute. So I'm going to just stamp it on a piece of white card for a second, because I want to see if it'd look really cool ransom style. And if you've got a scrap of card around, you can try it before you stamp directly. Right, because you've got these squares. Oh, I think I quite like that. Grown with love. Now, the grown and the with, the grown and the love are okay, but the with on the white looks wrong. So, how can we stamp this in those places? I mean, those 2 we could just stick down, but I want this to be a perfectly flat card. So how are we going to stamp these words where we want them without getting ink on the wrong thing? Well, a couple of things you can do. Easiest one is grab some masking tape. And what we're going to do is, when we eventually find the end of our masking tape, we're going to do it 1 word at a time. So we are going to cover up with a piece of masking tape everything but the grown. Okay. Take the masking tape off and stamp grown. Wipe off the ink off there, put your masking tape back on over the grown and the love this time, and then we're just going to ink up the with. Take away the masking tape. The reason we take away the masking tape is because we don't want that to create a halo. We also don't want it to get the inkiness. Make sure you clean your stamp properly. And then last one, we're going to cover it up. Evening, Diane, how are you? And go with just the love. Okay. And then you've got your grown with love. How simple is that? And look around at what you've got. And the reason I say that is because I notice my memento is like a petal. Now, I can't do the solid shape because the mementos have got these little lips on them. But the bottom there is a nice shape. So I was just going to do a sort of a simple flower shape with that. And then maybe add a greeting. Add one of the flowers, but you don't need me to see, let me try that sentence again. You don't need to see me do the whole thing to just get the idea, but have a look at things with different shapes. So I'm going to go with the Ripe Persimmon because that had got a lovely, that was quite, really sort of smear it in, that's it. So, spritz. You see, and you've got that nice petal shape. And you can just build it round. And you've got that nice flower shape that you could, if you wanted to, because you've used Distress ink, if you wanted a more solid look. How, when I've only done one thing since I tidied the desk, is it full again? Because you've used Distress ink, you could use your water brush and pull the colour in, add a little middle there, give it a dry, add one of the nice sentiments. I will just give it a dry. Let's stamp her. Let me just stamp a sentiment on there. Okay, so let's have, what's that one? Have a bright and beautiful day. That's nice. So, where's Van Claire? Just, you know, how simple is that? Just using something that you've got around there to create some colour. And if you know, you could even add a different colour coming out. You know, you could just go to town, and that's using the ink pad that you've already got. The other thing would be to add a stalk. So we've got this nice, on the sunflower, you've got a really funky stalk. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to very slightly bend my stamp. You can't, some you can bend more than others because there's less stamp on them. But I can just add that, clean off the top there, and add our stalk. And just by giving it that little bend gives it that sort of fun feel. How simple is that, using your ink pads? Right, next. Okay, let's have a look. So I've got some welly boots there. What we got in there? Let's have a look. Watering can. So let's have a bit of copier paper, and I'm going to cut out just a little slot like that. It's going to be quite nice. So again, you could do this with your trimmer, you could do this quite accurately. I'm just for speed going to do it like that. Right, we're going to go with me blues and me greens. Okay, bit of green. Very, very strange noises. Okay, bit of blue, bit of green, bit of blue. Bit of interest in the background here, add a few trees, but quite subtly. I don't want it to be too overpowering. Bit of beanstalk, it's got a bit of foliage to it. But just sticking to the colours that we've used, because this is just to create a background. And you know that if you've smeared the colour around, it's always going to be more subtle than the stamped one. So you can just about make that out. Right, we should have now a nice little interesting panel. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stamp our welly boots. Now we could just stamp them, hang on, we could just stamp them black on white there, which will look, we'll do that. Nice, subtle. Or you could stamp them and cut them out of white so that the boots are completely white. So they're going to pop even more. So let me just quickly, I've only got a bit copy of paper that I can use, but I'll give you the idea. So there we go. And this will make them pop again, just very slightly. Round. Or you could stamp them onto a patterned paper, so you've got Larry wellies. My friend's little nephew came for a walk today with his purple diamond patterned wellies today, most spectacular. So they pop forward a little bit more. You could do the same thing with the wheelbarrows. So you could have a whole series of these, or you could have more than one panel within the card and each one has a different image to it. Just, you know, nice and simple, because they're such bold, lovely little designs. But the other thing you've got in here is you've got these little flower pots. I am going to stick the flower pot onto that ink lid, because what I was finding was on my bigger acrylic blocks I was wobbling a little bit. So I'm just going to do, now these would look really nice if that was a perfectly straight row, so if you want to do that, give yourself a marker to follow. Let's have 5 pots. There is a smaller pot as well. And again, you could come in and you could put sunflowers coming out of each of these. He's a bit tall, so what we can do is we can mask off, and then we're going to have the sunflower coming out of each of these. One a little bit taller, and I'm only going to do 4 of the pots. Okay, because in the last one I'm going to do, there is a tiny, where is it? Oh, but it's still in the bag because it is such a tiny little stamp. Where's the bag that was in? Because there is a tiny little sprout. Where's the bag? Not that bag. Oh, don't tell me I can't find him. Oh, he's still, but there's a tiny little, I can use the acetate to show you. There is this tiny little sprout, and I was just going to put that coming out of there, so he looks like he hasn't grown, but it's definitely not on that sheet. Which bag did I take that out of? I thought it was that one. That's annoying. So I can't add a little sprout. I can fake it. We'll have a tiny. So what I'm going to do this time is mask off the top, and we'll have our little sprout. That worked. So you can do that kind of pattern, not pattern building, but scene building with these. Again, you could colour these in, colour one of them in, colour all of them in, cut them out of pattern paper. There is so many things you can do with like a little flower like that. Right, so Let's now just play with the greetings. I'm going to put, don't think I need all of those for now. Let's put the potting shed back. And then we're going to play with just the greetings. So I'm going to be good. I'm going to grab a bag. Thought as I picked the bag up, it was going to be the one with the sprout in. Right, so that goes in the bag. Like so. Right. Oh, wellies. This is why stamps end up in the wrong bags, because they'll be on an acrylic block. Right. Okay. Let's get a piece card. And let's divide it up. Not overly thinking. Okay. Move that up a bit. Oh, look, there's more than one piece of card there. Okay. And I'm going to go all the way around the edge as well. So. Obviously, when you're doing this, try not to get mucky fingerprints in the bits. How do I get such mucky fingers straight away? Right, and across there. Okie dokie. Now, grab a sponge, grab some colours. Gonna have mown lawn. Kind of like the green. And I want to get lots of colour down here. So I'm going to build it up fairly quickly, but not too much of one colour. It's always a bit risky putting green down first, because when you add something like orange, it can just go a bit murky, browny colour. But I'm going to go up through to barn door or something like that, which should dominate. But just be aware of what colours mix. But I just want to get plenty of colour on there. So I'm going to now go in with the barn door. I'm going to leave some mustard seed for the end. See, and that's sort of taking the brownness away a little bit. I'm not saying brown's bad. It's just quite sometimes hard. If you've started with a green, it can be hard to recover it to a brighter colour. It's the same as if you go with a brown and then you're going in, not a brown, a blue. And then again, going in with something like a red. Although theoretically it should create a purple, sometimes, particularly some of the distress inks, are much heavier on the greeny blues, like Mermaid Lagoon. It has an element of green within it, because it's more of a turquoise. Okay. So, but barn door's quite dominant. And then just to give it a bit of warmth, I'm going to go in with mustard seed over the top. See how much warmer mustard seed creates stuff. Mustard seed is one of those colours I very rarely use on its own, but it's an important colour to have in the arsenal. I mean, just I don't know if it's coming across in real life. That's kind of a bit flat. This has got interesting depth. Okay. So we're just really getting this going. Right. Might actually have to take my jacket off. I'm going to regret this. This is going to be a jacket on, jacket off kind of moment. And also my mic was clipped to it. Right, here we go. There. Right, lots of nice colour there. Okay, let's choose. I think we're going to go with Twinkle and Shine because that's quite a bold one. So I want a piece of kitchen towel. Okay. And I am going to make that kitchen towel very wet. Okay. Very wet. And I'm going to come in and press my stamp into it so that my stamp is picking up the water. Press down, count to 10, take it away. Come in, dab and take away the colour. Okay, I'm not expecting to be able to read this fully. I'm just wanting to create a little bit of interest. Okay. Also remembering to take the ink off the stamp as well. I will give it a little blast. It will always look a little bit brighter when you give it a little blast. But what I'm trying to do here is introduce a little bit of tone, a little bit of shading. Okay, let's get some more in there. So this could be any stamp that you do this with because we're not planning on actually reading this. We're just wanting to create some tone, some differences. It's the same as you could splatter your water on. Sue showed me a really cool thing last workshop where she put the water on her hands and clapped, which gave a really, really good effect. Okay, a couple more. Just anything that's going to, so this could be a screwed up bit of tissue or something like that, just that's going to, you can see from the kitchen towel that it's taking colour away. Okay, right, we're going to stick with that same stamp now, but this time I'm going to ink it up with one of the colours we used in the background. Again, it is not going to be completely over the top. That will come in a minute. It's just, not even sure you can see that on camera, but it's a real subtle. And notice I am rotating my stamp. I'm not aiming for smack bang in the middle of my masking tape. I'm just anywhere. So if it's fully in the square, fine. If it's not, fine too. Okay. Right, I'm now going to go to the mown lawn. So that shows up a little bit better. Even though it's way down in the pile of inks there. But I'm just wanting, I'm not wanting it to be too busy and too overpowering yet. I just want a bit of interest. Probably said that 100 times. Hi Jackie, how are you? So, yep, happy with that. Right, now I'm going to come, right, just try to do that. Okay, still got an hour to go and she's putting the lids on her stamps. Right. Yeah, let's up the ante a little bit. By the way, I've been using the top of the talc to hold my double-sided tape. So I just had to unhook it. Right. So we're going to rub the talcum powder on there. That's going to remove any moisture from that background, because we're going to stamp and emboss now with clear. I don't know why, I just thought that sounded like fun. I'm ad-libbing at the moment on this. Okay. Bit more. Up there. Right. And hope now that when I come in with the clear, let me just unstick that from the mat. When I come in with the clear, it will only stick to those words. Why am I putting the lid back on? I don't know. Oh, it's stuck a bit. Not brilliantly, to be fair. Maybe that ink pad's a bit naff. It's not looking great. It's trouble when it's a full pot that's settled. Just checking now Marvin's not the other side of the counter. I just blew that onto him. Right, that didn't actually, that ink pad's not great, so we're only going to get hints of it. That's fine. We can live with hints. Because what it does, when you add clear, it just emphasises it a little bit more. Well, it really is a naff ink pad. Oh, there's a bit more up there, I think. No, maybe not. Right. Okay, I'm going to give it a little buff now. So it's back to its, but we now also know that that's nice and dry. Okay, I think we're ready to do our main feature. So I'm sticking with the same greeting and I'm coming in with black. And just tilt it. Rotate it. I'm not going to turn it upside down completely. I'm just sort of tipping it. Okay. Oh, close. Right, yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, let's do the pull off now. See, I remembered I'd done the outside first. So you get that nice crisp edge. And it doesn't matter that we're not going to get all of the words. That's actually quite easy to see. So that was across. That was across there. That one down. That one down like that. And then you've got something a little bit fun there. That you see enough that you can read the greeting, but you're not seeing it all. So your greeting doesn't have to be smack bang in the middle, matte and layered. It can be, you are very late, but don't worry. You can watch it back. I will get this uploaded. I don't know what happened last time with the fact that it only uploaded the 3 minutes, even though it was showing that it downloaded it all. But I think it's okay now, so I will get it uploaded. But it's just a little bit of fun there to create. We've done those sort of backgrounds before. Now, another one we have done before, but I just think works really nicely with greetings, especially if you're doing a card or something for somebody who you may not know that much about them. You know, it might be a cousin you haven't seen for a while or something like that. So this technique works really nicely. And as long as they're fairly square, this will work. So I've got this upside down on my acrylic block. So this is traditionally the sticky side. Okay, give it a little puff of water. Then place it down in the middle of your card. Give it a little press. Let the ink soak in for a minute. While it's doing that, clean your acrylic block. Peel that off. Dry the back of your stamp, stick that back down onto your acrylic block the right way up. Yes, you've got a lot of catching up to do, and I'm expecting you to do this as homework. It's not like anybody's going to be busy this week. So make sure that's dry. Then VersaFine Clear and a nice bold black over the top. So you've got that nice splash of colour behind there. It only works if your greeting is fairly square. Now, most greetings are, so this will always work. And then I would cut that, mat it onto black, and then, you know, onto a nice bright background, you know, or something you could do like that watery cut. Right, let's, rather than me just verbalise it, let's actually do it, because we've got time tonight. As long as by past I move on to the exploding box, we'll be okay. So whiz round there. Okay. So on to a little bit of black. I mean, that just straight away looks fab. And it's so easy to mix up your colours, you know, your colour schemes this way. So that, so then I want, will that be big enough? Yeah, it might be actually. Just saving card here. Because as you can imagine, I'll motor through it a bit. Right. So that this doesn't get overpowered by our background, we're going to keep the background same colours but a little simpler. So on our acrylic block, first of all, make sure your acrylic block hasn't got any other colours on. So we're going to mustard seed. Was it mustard seed and barn door I did? I don't know. Okay. And then cover it as not fully, because you can see it's not fully, but just enough splatting so that it's come back. In the words of Kate Winslet, so that the colour's gone to the edge. So this could be a mop-up. Is anything going to stay put? This could be a mop-up sheet that you do with this with, as long as you can remember what colours were on your mop-up sheet to then do your backy thing. Back of your stamp technique. Oh dear. Who said do a 2-hour one at this point in the year? It's amazing I've strung any words together. Yesterday I tried a new cookie recipe, and it was they're called lace cookies, and they're a bit like brandy snaps, but you put oats in them. I think from the fact that Paul kept visiting the kitchen and then scurrying off again, and the pot seemed to have gone down, I think they were quite successful. So because I do tend to, we don't do huge like piles of presents, but what I do is bake cookies and rock buns and things like that, so that we have sweet treats a little bit more. So because we're here now and we'll go home, and so we're having dinner quite late, I just got to make sure I move the pot of cookies so that he doesn't spoil his sausage casserole by destroying half a pot of cookies. Fortunately, he's leaving the spicy nuts alone at the moment. They're really nice. They've got cayenne pepper and paprika and things like that on there. Really nice. And but obviously heavy on the butter and sugar, as is everything at this time of year. These lace cookies, very heavy on the sugar and the butter. I just think that's really bright and cheerful. You know, if you send that to someone, they'd feel special. But again, this idea with the backgrounds, this doesn't have to be a greeting on a card, shine bright like a diamond, other than Rihanna singing about it. It's really nice in journal pages, and this sort of layout and this kind of technique is really nice. It breaks up your white card, because sometimes, especially with a journal page, going straight onto a plain white white page can be a little bit overwhelming. So doing something like that is really nice to just like give you a starting point. You know, it's just that breaking, I suppose it's like breaking ground on a new build. It's just breaking up the white. Calories don't count on Christmas. Well, yes, but that's okay, but what do you count as Christmas? I'm not sure the 21st of December is close enough to count as Christmas. And then when does it stop? You know, when we were kids, the Christmas food, which, you know, there was cupboards of it, but you couldn't touch it until Christmas. You know, it's a bit subjective. And really, I think, you know, the amount of sugar in these was quite high. Okay, I want to just look at this stamp next. I mean, there's loads of fabulous greetings, but this one is really lovely. And let's do a nice simple one with it first. So I want a couple of bright colours. So I'm going to sort of mix up the colours here. Once I've got a gauge, so I'm doing the green all the way down, but I'm sort of moving it about so that it will be staggered. I probably won't do the whole of this piece of paper just because that's going to take a good while. Okay, and actually I'm just going to do one more row because I was talking and I wasn't concentrating on what I needed to do. Yeah, that'll do. Right, so I've done the green. Now going to move into ripe persimmon and just fill in some of these gaps. Not all of them, and not that one. Let's have one there. Only because yellow doesn't show up massively. So I'm just filling it in, and they're not lining up perfectly, but they are lining up horizontally. So it is like lines in a book. So now coming in, and you're just creating like your own patterned paper, really. Again, this is really good for journals. Purposely leaving that gap there. So, because what I want to do now is come in with my black. Winston Stolz's Pagans Food, and just keep going. Okay, like it, happy to go with that. Slow cooker. No, I'm a batch cooker. I do have a slow cooker, but my slow cooker is in my cabin, filled with vermiculite for annealing glass beads, of course. So I tend to, on a Sunday, my treat is I batch cook and get everything up and in frozen so that I can just stick it in a pan. I think Stephen is allowed to. How's Stephen feeling, Sarah? Is he on the mend? So I've just done that one in black so that it really pops out from there. So you don't have to mat and layer and things like that. But the other thing I like about this one is it's a nice one to cut up and ransom. But also we can shape it a little bit. This would also work really nicely with this effect, but you'd get a long, thin barrier to do. But let's just chop that bottom off there. So yeah, by creating a background with it and then just stamping one in the sort of more dominant colour, it just gives you a really interesting look. So you can, as I did with the stalk, you can just bend stuff round a little bit. It will never bend right round, but we can give it a little bit of a shape. So we could have actually used this as the stalk for our flower. Yeah, I'm going to do that again because I wobbled. When you've got a long, thin stamp, it's very easy to tip your block so that not all of it makes contact. So just don't rush it. So, and then you've got a really fun stalk, a nice bit of shaping to it. And as long as you don't leave your stamp on your acrylic block, which you shouldn't do anyway because that's bad for them, says she, who's just looking over and realised there's loads on, just it will ping back in to its proper shape once you take it off the acrylic block and then stick it back down. But you can bend them and you can shape them. Oh, that's good to hear, Sarah. I'm glad. So nice, quiet Christmas, and hopefully everybody will start the new year in better health. And don't stop eating till all the Christmas cake is gone. End of January. I haven't done Christmas cake, but I keep seeing this three ingredient one. Okay, one of the ingredients is Bailey's, so I don't know. I've got to make Paul's trifle, and I'm afraid we are old school. We have the Bird's trifle mix because he's the only one that eats trifle, so I'll make him that. And then I've got Bailey's creme brulee. But no, it's biscuits and stuff like that I tend to make because it's things that we can pick a bit. And last night it was the dog cook up. I don't mean I cooked the dogs. I did carrot and cheese cookies and cheesy bones, which is basically cheese biscuits in bone shapes, and that's for George, Cosmo and Bumble. So Bumble's already had his, Cosmo's had his, so I've just got to do George's. I'm hoping to see George properly. Right, one of our splatties. We like our splatties, so let's pick some other greetings. Let's stick with this one. Let's stick with this, and we are going to just stamp it first, second generation. leave that one. Let's, no, that one. So this is a bit more wordy one. May your showers turn to flowers. That's rather apt, isn't it? You've been cooking. What you've been cooking? Has it been cooking or has it been baking? I mean, how many people have pre-prepped veggies and stuff like that? Or are we all doing it on the day? Because I have not, other than put them in the fridge, I haven't done anything with the veggies yet. Although I have had to buy Brussels sprouts because my Brussels sprouts that are growing in the garden would be mistaken for peas. So I thought probably best to buy a bag. So I have bought a bag, and then I've got some bacon lardons to do with them. But I might throw some of my miniature. Well, you know I like miniatures, so I might throw my miniatures Brussels sprouts in as well. So I've just sort of filled that in, just like we've done before, but I'm only using greetings. But now to really make that greeting pop in the middle there, I'm going to have to make it sing. So I'm going to use a piece of white, and I'm going to take the Twinkle and Shine because I really like that. Although it does, Twinkle and Shine does sound like a dodgy set of solicitors or, yeah. Oh, sorry, I saw orange and cinnamon, mince pies, sausage. Don't tell Paul, he'll be round in a minute. So I don't blame you, Maria. I forget that your birthday is this close to Christmas. Have a fabulous day. Yeah, so I don't blame you. Right, but I'm just going back to... Right, so mince pies, sausage rolls, and orange and cinnamon biscuits. They sound a bit nice. Yeah, because currently I have an orange and cinnamon and clove. What do they call it? A steam pot thing, you know, where you have water and then you put those things in and you bubble it up in the kitchen to make the house smell nice. I got one of those on the go. Only because there was a dodgy looking orange in the fridge. And it didn't look its best. And I thought rather than just throw it straight into the compost, I would use it to make the house smell nice. So I did. So I'm just matting that onto a bit of black. So normally we would just let that sit, you know, we normally would just cut that out of white. But to make it sing against quite a busy background there, I have matted it onto a bit of black, and then just try it in different places because it might be nice to have more of the gold showing. So that's just a nice little way with the mini sprout. Yeah, honestly, I will. Yeah, Mira, we got the 5p veg. We got swede, parsnips, Brussels sprouts, and carrots. So, oh, that's nice. That's nice, yeah. So I think the thing is, if you've got 4 grown daughters, I think you have probably done enough Christmas dinners in their childhood that you can be waited on this time. But yes, I will try and take a picture of my mini Brussels sprouts. They're adorable. Trouble was I had a caterpillar problem, but I left, so the caterpillars got to them completely, but I let them carry on. So, and they have recovered. They're just not recovered very big. Right, so I think that'll be it for stamping now. Let's move to how to make that exploding box. I just need to make a bit of space, and then I'll put those on my laptop so that we can have a quick refresh. Right, 4 of them. Oh, that goes over there as well. Right, that and that. Right, so 4 of them I need. We saw them a minute ago. And you know what? I'm going to have to put my jumper back on. Right. I had some squares. Where are they? Oh, right. That's ridiculous. That's just mad. I had them. I've got those. There they are. Oh, I just found a Pantone that I was going to do the sunflower on the other day. Right. So, to do the exploding box, you need 4 of your squares with holes in. And if you get the exploding box kit, we've pre-done this for you. Okay. I chopped one up, didn't I? Right. And then, there's loads of them now. There's hundreds of them. Okay. And you'll have 4 with holes and 1 without. Okay. And you arrange them in a little cross like this, so that the 4 with holes are on the outside. Okay. Now, if you're wanting to cover your box in patterned paper and things like that, draw around your papers, put them to one side. Don't stick them on yet until you have made the actual boxy thing. Okay. 2 days after, 2 days, yeah. Does that mean sort of Christmas stops for your birthday? See, I'm very lucky. My birthday is smack bang in the middle of the year, so I get a decent space. But of beautiful, lovely Paula Pascal, her birthday is Christmas Day, so I find that's particularly hard. Right, so space them out a little bit, and if you like things to be perfectly accurate, you want them spaced out the width of the board. Okay, but as I say, if you're planning to cover them with paper, which you probably would want to because they're a bit boring like this, cut your papers to size, but don't stick them on until you've done this, because we need to hide the mechanism. Okay, and then what you're going to do is, with the tape you get in the kit, we're going to stick them like this. And the reason we use tape and not paper is we want it to be nice and robust, because it goes boingy, boingy, boingy about. Okay. And you do all 4 bits. Doesn't matter if it sticks off the side like that. Absolutely fine. Okay. Like so. Then you flip it over, and this is what we want. We want it to be floppy. That's why we're using the tape. Okay. And you repeat the process. Okay. And cut it a bit longer so that it's going right down. Okay. But don't lose your end. Whatever you do, don't lose your end. Okay, round all 4. Once you've done all 4 like this, then you can start sticking your papers on. Okay, the reason you do it like that is so that the sticky tape doesn't show on the outside of your patterned paper. Okay, and then just really sort of run something down there so that the tape is sticking to itself and making this well joined but still floppity. Okay, and then you can cut out your corners. Okay, cut. So this is the main construction. Okay, so once you're at this stage, so you can cover it with paper if you want to. And if you are covering it with paper, cover one side, use a barbecue skewer to poke out the holes while you can still see the one side. Because if you cover both sides and then go to poke the holes out, you can't easily find them. So do one side, poke the holes out, turn it over, do the other side and then re-poke the holes again, so the holes are there. So this is what you're wanting, nice and floppy. Okay, the lid is, again, we're going to do it in the little sections. I'm just looking for a bit of paper that I can stick it on. It's a bit fancy. I will just use some brown paper. So, to do the lid, you've got all the bits again, so don't worry. So one of the squares without a hole is slightly bigger. So put it in the middle of a piece of paper. Then take the side panels, stick them, and this is why I tend to do this and then leave the lid to dry for a bit before I do any folding up or anything like that, because you want a good bond. So you want the glue to go right to the very edge of this. Okay. And again, you're just spacing them out so they're not butting too far up to the main rectangle there, square. They are squares. Okay. So you just get it glued like that, and then leave it for a little while under a bit of weight if you can. I'm going to go back to this. So I've covered it all in paper. I've happened to have covered it in grey boring paper. In your kit, you will also have some little bits of board that look a little bit like this. Okay. And you will also have a pot of elastic bands. And you only need 2. You've got plenty. Oh, look, there's my little sprout stamp. He was stuck to me elastic bands. Of course he was. Right. Why don't we buy for Christmas? We have a funny raffle. Hang on, got to go find that message on the laptop. I can't read it on my phone. Right. We have a funny raffle on the day, and I'm spoilt for my birthday. I'm 65 on Saturday, and all going out for a meal. Very nice. Enjoy. We play on the cruises. We play a funny present game. I've seen some really, really good ones. It's such a nice alternative. So yeah, enjoy anything like that. That's a bit of fun. When we were kids, we used to have our stockings, which we were allowed to open before we went downstairs, and then obviously our main presents. And then at tea time, we had tree presents, and miraculously these appeared in the tree, and our tree was really little, and Mum used to hide, and it would be like some chocolate money or something like that, but we had another little present in the tree presents, which was really sweet. Right, so I've got my 2 elastic bands and I've got my holes. So you take one end of your elastic band and poke it through the hole, and then this gets a bit of glue on and it goes through as an anchor point. Okay, and then you would just glue that to there. So once it's glued, you can then put something like a button or make it decorative. Okay. I put my panels right over the top of them, but that's a little bit harder because you're sort of having to stick it over the top there. So maybe a little button or something like that. Okay. And then you've got to pull this and go through the hole on the opposite side. Okay, we have drilled the holes. Yes, they are drilled with a drill. We have drilled the holes so that they should be fairly easy, but you can use something to poke them through. Avoid using something like a pokey tool because you don't want to pierce the rubber band and weaken it. So I sort of use something like a barbecue skewer, but the sort of blunt end, just enough to get it through, and then use one of your other anchor points. Okay. And that's your first bit of construction done. So these get glued so that the elastic band can't pull out. Okay, looks fairly simple now at the moment, but we've got to do the same going the other way. And obviously these sides are pulled up now. So through the hole, anchor point. Okay, get that glue down. Now you'd want a wet glue for that, something with a bit of oomph. Okay, then take the rubber band through the middle, so it's going across. So when you look from above, you've got a cross there and into your other side. Okay, have we frozen? No, it's just my laptop's frozen. Okay, then we go out of that hole, and this is where it can get a little bit frustrating because it's going to want to keep pulling itself back. Okay, through. If you need to do a pokey with the barbecue skewer or something like that, just to get it through. This is obviously because you've got the other sides getting in the way now, but don't rush, there's no panic on it. Also, it'd help if my fingers weren't cold. Right, once you've got it, and then another anchor point into there. So now it's holding itself in a box shape. Okay, and then to activate it, you flatten it down, and then you can see it wants to bring, and then turn it in on itself. Okay, turn it up that way. I'm going to borrow the lid off my other one. Lid on, and now that's primed. And then when you let the lid off, it springs up. Okay, so flatten it down, flip them over, lid on, and now it's primed. Okay, and then as soon as you take that off, the elastic bands will ping and it will spring around. Okay, it is important to glue your anchor points down. Okay, yours will be slightly longer than the ones I've got, just because you don't want your elastic bands to come out. If the elastic bands break, you can obviously replace them, but yeah, it's just a really fun one. So let's scroll down. Buying so many bags of cheap veg at work, given the, yeah, I've been freezing them as well, but our Aldi had it said limited to 4. Now I took that as 4 items, so I got parsnips, swede, Brussels, did I say carrots? Can't remember. But I don't know whether it was 4 of each. But I mean, if you've got a big family, 4 bags isn't a huge amount. But yeah, I know what you mean. But I like making soups and stuff, so I would always use veg. We don't really waste veg in our house. It goes in a soup. Although I did plant the butternut squash seeds because I emptied my little kitchen compost bin a couple of weeks back. And because it sits by the sink, it was on top of where the dishwasher runs. So it gets warm. And in the couple of days before I emptied it, the butternut squash seeds had sprouted. So I quickly shoved them in a pot. And we'll try growing our own butternut squashes because I like a nice roasted butternut squash soup. So that's a good one. My mashed potato squashes did well this year. Right, so our lid, I'm not going to make this fully because the glue will need to dry on it. But cut it like this, so that you're cutting flush to there. If you want to fold it over and do that, you can do, but I try and keep it as smooth on the inside. Then each corner, do one little cut so that it's got a flap. Okay, just one little corner. So you only need to do 4 cuts. Okay, then the sides can come up. And then you can see this is why you have to wait for your glue to dry on there before you do this, because then you want to bring that corner round and attach, corner round and attach, corner round and attach, and do it on all 4 sides. And then you can even hold that in place while your glue dries with one of the elastic bands or a bit of a clip. But you must wait for your paper to be fully dry on your lid there before you start folding it up. Otherwise, you're going to run into difficulties and your lid won't hold its shape. Yeah. So that is the exploding box. So this one, so you can see the workings there. So on the outside, I kept it fairly plain with the music. Fold it up. Now, this is something that you do need to bear in mind, that when it springs, it flips over as well. So, see how it flips over? So when you're attaching your images, flatten it down a second, have these ones. This is now the top. When it's primed, that's the bottom of the inside, but when it actually springs up, that is now the top. So these need to be coming that way. So you've got enough in the kit, you have enough to do 6. So you can do one with just pattern paper first till you get to know how it springs about. You could put confetti or something like that inside. You can also have something in there that, you know, like a dimensional. So for the potting shed, you could have the flowers. Yeah, I suspect my friend Helen's rats will have a fair few leftovers. I've given them, you know, the tree bark effect bird feeder. I've given the rats one of those for Christmas because there's this like squeezy stuff, a bit like Primula cheese that you can get for rats, which is like a treat. And I thought they'd quite like to play with that. So yeah. So yeah, so you can have a dimensional thing on there, just not too delicate, because obviously there is quite a little bit of force to that when it goes off. So that's the exploding box. Right, we are coming to the end because my fingers are going numb and I can't feel them, and my voice is starting to go. So let's just quickly recap on what we've made tonight. So we did our little potting shed where we'd not stamped it correctly, so we tore a patterned piece of paper and filled it in. Then we also had our potting shed where we cut out the aperture of the doorway, and then using like a U-shaped piece of card, we've attached it so it looks like we're looking into our potting shed. We did the one where we die cut a leaf shape and then stamped that and then stuck that on top. So you've got this real interesting sort of illusion of the leaf sticking out from, can you see that? From the image. We did then, because we had the leaf shape, we inked through it and created little decorative panels, which we did. We also did one where we even made it look like a little scene inside it. Then we used our ink pad to create panels of colour just by wetting our card and then dipping our ink pad into the distress inks. Messing about with the little pot stamp, using a memento ink pad to do the petal shapes, some masking off to create some panels, building up a pattern using one stamp. Yeah, that's really funny, Lucy, because that's exactly what Helen calls it. So that's, yeah, so I crossed out on the packaging for this. I actually crossed out where it said bark butter and put rat crack. So yeah, yes, that's exactly what it is. Then this one is just using the back of the stamp to create a panel, and then using the same colour inks on an acrylic block just to do blobby blob. Bit of collage where we had our twinkle and shine, and then lost the flower, bending our stamp around to create a stalk for a flower, or just, you know, to add a bit of interest to our stamping. So that's what we've done tonight. let me flick to front camera, bear with me. Hello. Right, so that's what we've done tonight. I am going to call it a night. It is a few minutes earlier than I said. I know I promised you 2 hours, but my fingers are turning they're turning blue. No, they're not. They're turning black, actually. But yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot there. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for the last year. It's not been the easiest year in terms of the industry, in terms of everything, but you guys have been amazing. Can't believe we've been doing Facebook Lives for over a year now, so they are all on YouTube for you to catch up on. We've started our online workshops. We'll continue those in 2026. We've started the club, which is a lovely, safe place for people. And we do workshops a bit like this. It's a 2-hour one, and there will always be a sort of a more in-depth project. We will continue our Facebook Lives in the new year. I'm not doing one, say, between Christmas and New Year, but yeah. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys, so thank you very much. We also have a very important trip in January to go and collect more stamps, so that'll be fun because there's lots more that we've got. But in the meantime, whatever you're doing at Christmas, have a fabulous time. Hope you get lots of crafty Christmas gifts. I also need to continue to see all the makes from your your crafty advent calendar. Especially can't wait to see what you think of number 25. I've loved what I've seen so far of them. Also, the little bookshelf one from that, I have asked Paul if he can make it slightly bigger, and we're going to do a workshop on that. So yeah, all the workshops for the new year, I'm starting to put them up, and we're expanding those. But in the meantime, have a fabulous Christmas. Eat, sleep, enjoy, and just make the most of the season and spend it with those people that you want to. So wishing you a very Merry Christmas, very Happy New Year, and I say thank you very much from me, Paul, and as it says in a minute, the fur babies, Marvin and Tonka, and we will see you next year. Take care.